did the lunch thing again, which is exciting. Lindsay was actually just here, but she had to leave to get back to work. A slightly smaller group today. We got Dan and Roland, and that's basically it. There was 5 of us. Michael and William couldn't make it. We also invited Jarrett, but he lives like 1,000 miles away. So
maybe like 1/100th of that.
it's still pretty far. We already ate lunch. That's it. We've just been sitting here talking. We've talked about
K&W.
Mallory has a problem with K&W, and I have a problem with Mallory's problem with K&W. I'm just saying, K&W is good, man. Like, I understand that it has this reputation as being for older audiences. There's this really terrible acronym, Canes and Walkers, that gets thrown around, but it's actually a really good place to eat. And anything that she says is wrong. Roland knows.
It's great. It's absolutely amazing.
It is.
Factory milk.
Just don't try their crab cakes.
Well, I mean, yeah. Dan made the mistake the first time we were there of eating crab cakes. Who gets crab cakes at K&W?
Or any cafeteria. Any cafeteria.
Yeah, you go and you get your meat and your vegetables and you sit down and you don't say anything. Dan did get crab cakes, but he's learned. We fixed it for next time. Anyway, let's do this again next week. When I was at McAllister's, I ordered the club sandwich, and I never have any problem eating that club sandwich. But today, I could not eat the entire club sandwich, which means that I have club sandwich left. No, Mal, no! That's my sandwich! Why did you do that? I needed that inch. Why did you eat my sandwich? I mean, I actually only ate half of my sandwich earlier, so there was this one and another one. I already ate the other one. Okay,
So.
no, it's mine, though. If you wanted the sandwich for later, then you should have saved some of your food.
I had a salad.
You should have saved some of your salad. I'm just saying, I'm okay with sharing, but that was the official amount that can be shared. You had the share amount, the rest of that sandwich is mine, dang it. So as you guys probably know, I finished that Outlaws video 2 days ago, and it's done, it's ready, I reviewed it, it's good. I'm like, cool. And it's already uploaded, it comes out tomorrow. Well, I got to thinking, as I often do, could there be some unused assets in the game? Because that's a common thing. Developers create a game, they may create a sprite or a sound effect or something, and it's included in the game files. They end up not utilizing it, but it's still there. So I decided before this video comes out, I would check. And I looked in the directory, and there's all these files. I'm trying to figure out what is what, and from what I could tell, there was this. There were these files that were pretty big, and they were housing all the resources. They were a proprietary container format, and I found out later they're specifically for LucasArts games. LucasArts made this format called .lab, which stands for LucasArts Binary, and I was looking into it and trying to figure out how to get into these container formats to get access to the sprites and things like that. And I found a blog post of someone who was trying to do the same thing, trying to get into Outlaws to just take a peek. And they had made source code of a program that would unpack these files. Way over my head. I don't know how to compile all that crap, so I sent it to Alex. And he said, it's a little involved, he said, but I can do it, no problem. And I was like, that's awesome. And he said, actually it'd be easier if you just sent me the lab files. So I took all those files from Outlaws, sent them to Alex, he unpacked them, sent them back, and I'm now sitting on all of that information. Now, the downside is, even though all the sound effects and the taunts are WAV files I can just play, because they're normal file. All of the sprites are actually in another proprietary format called like NXF or something. And there's apparently like a 20-year-old Windows program that will look at these sprites. So after I finish the sandwich, that's my project. You know, before this Outlaws video comes out, even though I've spent so much time on it already. Again, what am I doing? I'm going to poke around. You know, I figure if I'm gonna spend all this time anyway, I might as well spend just a tiny little bit more time to see if there was something hiding in there. So I'm gonna look at all the files and see if there's anything that is out of the ordinary, something that wasn't used, something strange, and I don't know what I'll find. Maybe nothing, but I think if nothing else, it was probably worth a peek. So a slight update, just because I find this entire process fascinating, the idea of jumping into the files of a 20-year-old computer game. There's this proprietary format called NWX that is basically an animation. It holds every bitmap that makes an object an object. So if it's, if it's a barrel or something that never changes at all, then it would just be, one bitmap inside this NWX file. And then the game references that NWX file and says, here, put this here. And it only has one frame, so you only have to worry about that one thing. But if it's a character, then it's going to have, quite possibly a lot of frames. And each of those frames have an individual ID, so if the game needs to pull up a specific frame, it references first that NWX file, and then the frame number of what it needs to pull up. Anyway, in order to actually look at these NWX files, I had to find a program to do it, and the only program that can do this was made in 1999 and has not been updated since 1999. It was only a 0.3 version release, and it was made by people that, just wanted to get into these and poke around and see what was there. And it's kind of bad because the only thing that's in these NWX files are bitmaps, and I would love to be able to dump all the NWXs into it and have it export out all the bitmaps. But the program doesn't do that. It will accept one at a time and allow you to poke around that way. And it's a little frustrating because I can't just see everything immediately. But it's still fascinating. So I thought I'd show you this program because it's old. So here's the program itself. This is NWX Editor version 0.3. And one of the files I've opened, woman1.nwx, is one of the civilian women that you find in the game. And you can see all of these are the different bitmaps that make up the animation, and it shows you a little preview there of what it does. So the first ones are her getting shot, and then blood pouring out of her, and then this is her running around. So that's her default state. The civilians in the game don't really do anything. They're either running or dying. They're running until they get shot, either by an enemy or by you. So that's how it works. And then if you need one of these frames, so let's say we come down here and we say we wanted to show off that frame specifically, then you got to come up here to the individual cell and extract the image. You can extract all of the images, all whatever it is, 70, but you can't load in multiple NWX files. And that's kind of bad because there's a lot that make up Outlaws. There's a lot of different resources, and the only way to really know for sure what it is to load it in. Now, some of the stuff's pretty self-explanatory. With how the files are named, you can pretty quickly tell what it is. So I'm really just poking around and looking for anything that doesn't sound familiar and loading it in and being like, what is this exactly? But that's where I'm at. I already went through the weapons because the weapons were a completely separate folder. There's no secret weapons or anything in the game. I did find it interesting that all of the frames that are in the weapons are presented upside down. And I don't know why. The game must then re-render them, right side up. But they're all stored with the gun barrel pointing down instead of up. You're playing a first-person shooter, obviously the gun barrel should be pointing out towards everything. And in this case, all the frames are saved upside down for all the weapons. So, why? I don't know, but apparently that's how Outlaws does it. But only for the weapons. Only the weapons. Everything else is right side up. I don't know. Time for another update. I've been poking around the NWX files for a while, and I haven't found anything really that unusual. Now keep in mind, I'm not looking at every single one. There are hundreds, and they have to be loaded into this program one at a time. But I've been looking through file names to see if anything was unusual, and nothing really stuck out to me. I did find one object that I could not identify. There was a picture of a safe, and I'm like, I don't remember that from the game. But here's the problem. If I find something that I don't remember, there is a chance it could be from multiplayer. Multiplayer is the only thing that we didn't cover in the Let's Play. I went through all of the campaign, I went through all the martial training, I went through all the DLC historical missions, but I didn't do anything with multiplayer. Now, you're not missing out on a whole lot with multiplayer by not covering it, but you're missing out on just enough that there is a chance that if I find something kind of odd, it could be from that. The multiplayer maps are largely constructed from parts of the campaign and parts of historical missions, but there are a few maps that are completely unique. They're not super huge, I mean they're tiny, but I did not play them, and I have never seen them, partially because I had trouble getting... I tried to just get it loaded up so I could play on my own, and I ran into errors, and then I was like, alright, I'm not going to bother with this. But the issue is when I go digging around the files, if I find something that's unusual, it could be from that. That being said, having gone through the NWX files, I didn't really find anything that seemed that crazy. Then I moved over to the Mac, because I can only do the NWX thing on Windows. Moved back over to the Mac, and all of the textures are held as PCX files, which Photoshop can open, which is nice. So I started looking through that, and it's interesting. It's interesting because, for one, you're getting to see the game deconstructed, and it's a realization that there's a lot that goes into a game like this. Even a game that's 20 years old that seems, simple, there's a ton of effort into every little detail that went into this. All right, so these are the lab files that were in Outlaws. You've got Geo, which is geography, object, the patches, because there's various patches that were issued, and then the third patch was the handful of missions DLC, so it's got a bunch of stuff in that. The sound effects, the taunts, the textures, and the weapons. And the textures are where I've been exploring recently. What's interesting is that one of the most famous weird Easter eggs in Outlaws is the aliens dealing with the cow. You have to blow up an outhouse and you can go check it out. Well, that's the first texture listed because they're in alphabetical order, and it's A51 for Area 51. So if we bring it down to Photoshop and load it up, you can see this is the texture that is on the spaceship, which is kind of cool. You can load up the ceiling of the spaceship and the floor of the spaceship and the interior and the wall and all this stuff. So there's a few interesting things in here. A lot of these are pretty, I hate to say boring, but boring. You can just pick any one thing, bring it into Photoshop, and it's a board. It doesn't really have any particular significance. It's just a part of a level. But I did find some things that were interesting. So this was just like one of the backgrounds, one of the skies I thought was pretty. Here's another one of the skies. Here is the alien that shows up to close the door. And these are the aliens that are sawing the cow. So that's kind of interesting that I was able to pull this out. But then I got into some stuff that was kind of creepy. And actually there's another one I wanted to show. I think it's called, is it Default 2? Yeah, Default 2. Check this out. I'm sorry. Are you disturbed? Because I'm disturbed. I'm truly disturbed. That's nowhere in the game. And it's kind of creepy. Not gonna lie. I don't know why this is in here. It's not used anywhere. And this is called Default 2. There's also just plain Default, which is nowhere. It just says Default on it. Maybe they were using this for a texture that they hadn't filled in yet, and then one of the developers thought it'd be funny if they changed it to something spooky. That's my, I guess, but I have no idea. But it's spooky. I came across this, and I was like, what the crap? That's messed up. Anyway, there's some other stuff that's messed up. Now, you already saw the aliens in the game. They're kind of the traditional alien stuff. There's this, which is listed as alien. This is also pretty disturbing. Along with this, it's disturbing. I mean, you have these alien textures that are not used anywhere in the game, and I don't know why they're here. I don't know what purpose they serve. I also found the Clyde's a dirty dog thing, the texture that's used, which I just thought was interesting. And another thing I thought was kind of cool is that there's a part in the game where you blow up a sign that says Opatric's Feed and Supply. Well, I found that same thing as Clywipe's Feed and Supply. And this is a reference to Chris Cly, who is the lead level designer. It sounds like maybe they had this in here originally, and then they said, well, that's stupid, or an in-joke or something, and they changed it with Opatric's, which fits the game a lot better. Other than that, this is the crack that's used on like boxes to illustrate that you can blow them up with dynamite. And this, I think, is seen in the game, but I just never noticed it before. This is a barbershop, and it says D. Stinnett Proprietor, and D. Stinnett stands for Darren Stinnett, who is one of the project leads on Outlaws. So, like, there's a few interesting things here, but again, I can't prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that they're not in multiplayer because I can't play it. Now, is this in multiplayer? Probably not. Probably not. I highly doubt it. And these things are very strange. But they're probably not in multiplayer. That being said, I don't really feel like I have enough material here to warrant including it. Because that had kind of been my question diving into these files was, you know, am I going to come across some wild discovery that is worth putting into the video and re-exporting the video? And my answer is no, I don't think so. The only thing that's really weird is that default 2 and the aliens. That's really weird. Otherwise, the Opatric sign being changed is kind of interesting. But that's it. It's not like we're finding any like groundbreaking thing. And to redo the video and include that, I think I'm going to pass. Instead, this vlog will serve that purpose. This vlog is Outlaws supplemental material. So, you know, if you were curious about that sort of thing, there you go. And there might be more things in here, you know, that I haven't seen, but from poking around a little bit, that's what I found, which is kind of neat. Now, the last thing I was working on is going through all of the sound effects, and it's actually quite interesting. I'm not to the sound effects yet. I'm to the taunts, which are a staple of Outlaws. As you're walking through the town, you're constantly getting made fun of by the guys you're shooting at. They're always calling out to you from around the corners. What I found interesting about this is there's a ton of files in here, and each file, each wave recording, is in here 4 times. So how this works is you'll come across one of the taunts.
Where are you, Marshall?
Which, God knows, if you've watched that LP or played the game yourself, you've heard a million jillion times. Then it's presented again with a slight echo.
Where are you, Marshall?
And then again with another echo.
Where are you, Marshall?
And then again with a more subdued echo.
Where are you, Marshall?
And what's interesting is that they did that to show depth in the levels, so they can play one with a little more echo if the person's, you know, further away, or maybe they wanted to play it in the canyon levels, so you actually get that feeling of it reverberating off the walls. It's super interesting. It's just wild that they had to make 4 different files, because in 1997, I'm assuming there was no way for the game itself to alter the wave files before they came out to your speakers. It's just crazy. It's something that we would take for granted today because we wouldn't have to make 4 different files. We would just have one file, and then it would change it before it got to you. But here, they had different versions depending on, I guess, either the distance between the enemy and the player, or depending on the level that the, you know, the enemy was in, and it's wild. The other interesting thing is that, you know, going through these taunts and listening to them, I noticed something quite interesting. On the very last level of the campaign, you go to Bob Graham's ranch to defeat Bob Graham and save your daughter. And when you get to that final fight, at least in my case, and I think it's probably similar for most people, you actually kill Bob Graham pretty quick. And because of that, you don't really get a chance to hear any of his taunts. but he's got an entire, collection of taunts in the game, and you don't really get to hear them unless you, wait around. So I've never even heard a lot of these taunts.
Please, come in and do take a seat.
Like that, I never had a chance to actually hear that in the game.
Say goodbye to your little girl, Anderson. You stubborn son of a bitch. You'll pay for this. Don't think you won't. You think I'm gonna give up because of you? This is too easy.
I never heard those, because I killed him in 3 seconds. So, that's, it's interesting stuff. And there could very well be taunts in here that are not used in the game, but I think I'd have a really hard time figuring out which ones were which. The other thing that I find interesting is that there's a lot of effort that had to go into just getting in here to get all these resources. And, as far as I know from looking online, you can't find these resources anywhere. There's websites dedicated, like Spriter's Resource and Sound Resource or whatever, where you can find video game sound effects and sprites. And there's some sprites from Outlaws, but there are not sound effects and taunts and things like that. And I find that very interesting. There's so much material here. There's 1,200 files, albeit each of them are appearing 4 times, so it's more like 300 something. But that's a lot of voices. That's a lot of different taunts. So it's neat. So I'm working my way through the sound effects now, and I came across 2 interesting ones that I don't believe I have heard, and they're related to the poodle. If you either watched the series or if you watched the Secrets video, you might be familiar with the fact that there's this poodle that keeps appearing in various levels, and there is a sound effect for it being hit, a little bark. There's also one for it dying, and I don't think this ever played, because I'm pretty sure I would remember this. Yeah, so either they put the sound in here and then decided not to use it, or with perhaps the GOG version it didn't play this sound for whatever reason. That's different. Alright, so sometime later, and I've went through basically everything. All the sounds. I wanted to hear all the sounds. Went through a good bit of the textures and most of the, the NWX files I could load up. So I feel like I've really seen just about everything there is to see. And like I said, I'm not going to make a separate video for it. There's only 2 or 3 interesting things, and I already showed you guys for this video. And it's cool. It's cool. I really have enjoyed playing this game, and I went into this game thinking, I really want to put something between Uncharted and Assassin's Creed, because they're both, it's dumbing it down, but they're both climbing simulators, and I want to do something really off the wall and different. How about Outlaws? It's a game that I played as a kid. I really would love the opportunity to finally beat it, because I remember having trouble with it when I was younger. We'll use this as an opportunity to play it. And it became so much more, because we covered every single thing in the game. Not only by doing the campaign and the training and the DLC, but then going above and beyond and doing days worth of work to make a secrets video that covers every little thing. And then now, on a whim, to dive into the files and inspect inside there. I've had fun with it. I am ready to step away from it. Tomorrow the secrets video comes out, and I'm glad that it's just going to be out there, and I'll be done with it. But it's been fun, and this was kind of like a nice little final goodbye thing for me, in a way, to look through this stuff, and then also in a way to make this specific vlog. So if you enjoyed Outlaws, I'm super happy. If you haven't checked it out, it's worth checking out the first episode of the campaign. And I don't fault you if you only stick around for the campaign itself. If you only want to see those videos and the story and the animation that comes along with it, that's totally acceptable. Or if it's not your jam, that's fine too. Maybe check out the secrets video, because it's kind of interesting to take a look at some of the cheat codes and things like that, and just level design and game design in general of a game that's over 20 years old. It's interesting. But yeah, I think it was a fun project to do, and I have to say, at the end of this, I've learned way more about this game and the inner workings of the game and all the files and stuff than I ever thought I would. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun. Anyway, that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed looking into the game a little bit. There's some pretty interesting stuff, and I don't know, maybe I'll use one of the sound effects as like some sort of phone notification, because it's kind of neat. There's a few interesting ones there that are definitely unique to Outlaws, and I think it would be fun to hear every once in a while if I didn't keep my phone on silent like 99% of the time. Let's meet back tomorrow, shall we?